if you don't invest in yourself. And when I've not invested in myself, and by that, like personal development, growth, my own skill set, have I got the skills that I needed to be a CEO of a company? The big challenge always revolve around people, especially if you're like venture backed. You're going to be going through cycles where your company's going to be evolving and it will look materially different year after year. For me, the key's always been bringing in someone that can do it better than you. That's the easiest way to let go.
We're doing another live episode here in Marrakesh. We're gonna meet up with other SaaS founders for the SaaS Talk Founder Membership Retreat. Quick reminder, for season 4, we're gonna focus more on founder to founder learning. So really diving into the founder journey, challenges, mistakes, things that went well, but also I guess the things that didn't went well. So you can copy those or avoid the mistakes. My guest today is Jamie Akhtar. Jamie has multiple roles as a technical and commercial leader before starting Cybersmart. He is co-founded Cybersmart in 2016 and is the CEO right now. It is nice to get a technical founder on the show, so welcome to the show, Jamie.
Thank you.
We're gonna do a fire round in a way. Was Cybersmart your first startup?
It wasn't actually, no. It was my first tech startup though. So I've basically ran my own business's entire career. So I've never actually been employed by anyone. I think I am unemployable.
So have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Yes, for sure. I think it's been something that I remember back in school, like selling Pokemon cards and doing whatever I could to pay my way to make a bit of pocket money back in the days. I actually did a master's in entrepreneurship. That's an actual degree.
It? Okay.
It is a degree. So I studied entrepreneurship as well. Mostly because I did business before that. And I was like, I don't want to work for a corporate. I knew I didn't want to work for a corporate. I knew I wanted to do my own thing.
Nice. And have you defined a goal with Cybersmart? Like, where do you want to take it?
I'd say no, and I've never really sat down and done that, and that probably sounds really silly, like saying it out loud. I always really focus on, is this something I really enjoy? Yep. Is it something I can learn from? And is it something that's going to have an impact in the world? Again, very cheesy, but I really love, for me, the joy comes from learning, developing, having impact.
And is that also the thing which keeps you motivated?
I'd say to a large degree, yeah. I think constant challenge, constant obstacles or things that you need to overcome. I think most entrepreneurs are like that. We enjoy that discomfort of not knowing something, not being able to do something and actually getting over the hill, if you like. So that's definitely a big motivator for me. I think the other big one is people. So seeing my team develop and grow, seeing our customers grow. When a customer's happy, it's like one of the best feelings in the world, in my opinion.
And real personal one, what is your age?
36.
36.
Yeah.
Cool. We're going to dive into the company because I guess we haven't even discussed what Cybersmart does. So what does it actually do?
So Cybersmart is a platform for small businesses to better improve their cybersecurity. Well, our aim is to give them a connected, accessible platform that empowers them with complete cyber confidence. We mostly work with channel partners to get our product into those small businesses. So in our case, they're mostly managed service providers.
Yeah, we're going to dive into that more. What is your current ARR right now?
We're at 5 million.
Nice. And is that purely product revenue or also services?
It's product led, so all of our core technology is essentially allows them to understand their cyber risk. To get on top of that, we look at people, process and technology within a company. Basically goes from like 0 to 1 cybersecurity and keeps them at 1.
Yeah. And how many employees do you currently have?
65.
Nice. And did you take any outside funding?
We did a lot over many funding rounds at 20 million.
20 million. And how many funding rounds was that?
Including all the bridges and everything, probably about 6 or so.
Okay. And would you do it differently next time? Because sometimes you hear people don't want to go for funding versus want to stay bootstrap. Would you do it exactly the same or different?
I personally would. I think it's a choice. I think it's a decision, but I definitely would do the same. I think a lot of it is about the investors you bring on board. Almost every founder I speak to that hates their investors or regrets it is because of the people they brought on board, the decisions they've took.
So I guess like maybe then one dive deeper here, like what have you done differently than them to get good VCs in or good investors?
Look at it as a two-way process and optimize for who's going to help the business the most versus who's got the best terms. Two-way process, you're interviewing them. You really want to know that you can work with these people, that you're going to spend a lot of time with them, probably more than like your spouse. So you better enjoy that working relationship. And you both got to have the same goal. All parties need to have the same goal. Otherwise it starts to create a lot of friction.
Yeah. Maybe then even to come back on the first thing you said, you don't have a goal defined, but in the end, the VCs would probably want you to have a big goal in mind.
We have a goal, get bigger.
Yeah.
But in terms of this is something that's crystal clear, we're going to get to this, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to retire and go and sit on a boat or something.
No.
I think it's always about having a direction of travel. Like, we want to help customers, we want to protect all the world's SMEs from cyber threats, right? So that is a goal in a way. But from my perspective, it's not like I need the business to go from A to B, and when it gets to B, then I'm gonna be out.
Nice. Cool. Now, I guess these are the real fire questions. Like, let's just dive a bit deeper in a more flexible way. How did you come up with the idea of Cybersmart?
Cybersmart, I think, like all the previous business as well, just talking to customers, like listening to what the challenges was. I read a book recently, recommend it, called Kind Folks Finish First. And then they talk about essentially like the 3 ingredients, right, of a good venture. The first is listening to the market, so understanding the customer need. The second is following your passion or something you enjoy. And then the third is your skill set. So I think looking at those 3, like almost like a Venn diagram, right? You can't just take 2. You can't just say, oh, it's a big problem and I really enjoy this problem space, but I have no idea what I'm doing. You've got to upskill very quickly. I think where you can really excel and build something special is where those 3 things come together.
Yeah, and that is what you did for yourself with Cybersmart.
Yeah, I love cybersecurity. I think it's a fascinating field. It's so deep. It's always changing. It's always evolving. There is a massive need, like millions of businesses out there struggling with cyber risk and challenges. And my background's in technology and cyber, so I worked as a security professional doing pen tests and ISO audits and everything in between. So that's really the 3 coming together.
Yeah.
And that's why I think 7 years on, I've still got the same passion and motivation and drive to make it bigger, make it better.
Yeah. In the end, you're in a market which keeps evolving, which keeps getting more important, I guess, nowadays, and bigger challenges to handle.
100%, yeah. The Allianz publish a risk report every year. It's not the most interesting read, but it is for people like me. Cybersecurity 10 years ago was number 8 in that, and it was actually mixed with failure and other things around IT. This year it's number 1, and by a clear margin. Over that time period, it's become way more important to society, to the world.
Yeah. And I guess if we go to the journey of Cybersmart, so now it sounds easy, right? You have good revenue, but I guess like getting product market fit as a cybersecurity tool, I can imagine that maybe is a bit more difficult than any other kind of tool. Like, how did you achieve product market fit?
Yeah, product market fit, I think, is a bit of I love the term, it's a liquid, not a solid, because it's not something you ever really achieve, right? It has to adapt. I'm sure Blockbuster had product market fit at one point, right? And now everyone watches Netflix, etc. I think that's probably the first thing to understand. I think it's too easy as founders to be like, oh, I got product market fit or not got product market fit. I think you can tell when you don't have it though, that's for sure, because nothing is working and you're spending lots of money and lots of time and it feels like it's a tremendously uphill battle. And then there's times when actually a lot of stuff falls into place. And the way we've found our way through that, like our playbook, if you like, was really listening to our customers. I think that's probably most important thing, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what you're doing, spend as much time with your customers as you possibly can. And I think we'll come on to how you balance that later, because listening to them too much or without your vision is also a bad thing. I think the next thing is you need to, like, when stuff is working, double down on it and also let go of stuff that isn't working. We've often in the past, or I've been like, I can see this working, but it's just not the right time, or it's not the right market. And sometimes you need to pull back from those bets, or take smaller bets in the future. So I think when you place a bet and it's starting to pay off, then double down. And the last bit, I think, sell the product. Like, I think a lot of founders, a lot of people I've seen are in incubator mode for like the stealth mode for so long. Try and sell the product, put it in a customer's deployment, try and get as much real life feedback as you can, because that's where 100 people tell you the product's great, 100 people tell you to buy it, but when you actually ask people to stump up their cash and ask them if it's delivering value, you really learn, I think.
Yeah, I think, and that's the thing with the first thing you mentioned, right? Talk to your clients. So if you're always in stealth, then you can't talk to the client. So get it out there, have them start paying for it. So test the willingness to pay, and then really see if they're getting value out of it.
Yeah, even if you want to build like a freemium PLG motion, I think monetize early, ask people to pay early, even if it's a fraction of what they will pay, with the intention that you'll ask them at the end, like, so would you have paid 10 times more for this because that's what we're looking at charging for it.
Yeah. And I guess you mentioned it already a little bit, talk to your clients, but not listen to them that much as in like the roadmap. What are some of the key learnings you had getting this right for yourself?
There was a lot, and it's a balance. I think product vision, and I'm a technical founder. I'm very much obsessed with what the product can do and what it can be, and product roadmap, etc. That's one lens, and then you've got the customers and their problems today and the challenges they've got today and the ways they solve those problems, often not in line with what you're proposing. So sometimes you can bring on the journey, so this is a better way of achieving your goals. If the gap's too big, then it's like a chasm and you can't really cross it. So you have to keep the product vision strategy in mind, but you also need to adapt that to customers. A lot of it comes down to timing. A lot of it comes down to the types of customers you work with. You'll often find in the earlier days, you've got early adopters that love trying new tech, and they'll give you one set of feedback that is, keep going, keep innovating, keep building the next thing. And then you'll move into the early majority, and they're like, but X tool has this feature, CSV exports or something. It's actually a common request we get. And we're like, our platform is supposed to solve this problem. Like, why do you want a CSV export? And we've resisted for a long time. And eventually you have to give the customer what they need, want, that fits in their workflow. So finding that balance, I think, is a real challenge.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, even though you don't need it, sometimes you have to deliver things which I guess the customers request.
Yeah. I'd say the worst situation, though, is you only listen to your customers and you lose sight of what you were set out to build or direction of travel. I say worst in my opinion. Sometimes it can be the right thing for the business. And if you're a sales-led organization, definitely that's what you should be doing. But you don't want to become a company that is simply building stuff that customers need. You want to show them how they can improve what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think in your case, like, you need to have a vision. You need to be ahead of the market, right? Especially in cybersecurity, you can't just build what the customers are asking, because otherwise, like, you're not helping them to fight against the new cyber crimes which are happening tomorrow and the day after. So
100%, yeah. And I think there's so many examples. If you look at financial services or fintech, like, some of the systems are just fundamentally broken and they need to be like rebuilt from the ground up. Like waiting 5 days for a payment to go across the world, right? It's just bizarre. That needs to be sorted. Like the whole process of buying a house or renting a house, all these things that are highly inefficient, highly manual, that's where you need to be really strong in your product vision, I think, because otherwise you'll make a faster horse, right?
Exactly, a faster horse, nice. When we dive into your go-to-market strategy, like, how did you go to market? How did you approach things?
So it's adapted quite a lot for us over the last 7 years. So we started with direct go-to-market, and I actually still think that's a pretty solid way of starting. And over time, we evolved into channel first. So the last 2 or 3 years, we really started doubling down on channel. So channel being resellers, managed service providers for us.
Yeah. And how do you then, because in the beginning you said like talk to your customers, how do you still make sure that you talk to the customers if it's channel first?
It's a real challenge. I think anyone that's considering building a channel part of the business or even going channel first at the start, I'd say find some way of closing that loop with the customer, with the users, whoever is like ultimate beneficiary of the product. The way we do it is we still have about 1,000 direct customers we can test, experiment with. We also ask our partners for feedback. We do a lot of feedback sessions directly with end users as well. So like we try and basically keep your ear as close to the ground as possible.
Exactly, yeah. So don't rely fully, I guess, in that case on partners, but always make sure that you still hear it direct from the clients.
100%, yeah.
And I guess if you look at the go-to-market, like what has been, for example, one thing you did really well, which has been pivotal for your guys' success?
I think one of the accelerants for us, and it's probably not applicable to everyone, but for us it was distributions to resellers. I think that really opened our eyes up to what was possible with channel, because we had our own channel before then, but we weren't really running a channel program. Like we hadn't really sat down and thought about that. We didn't have the expertise in the company to actually know that route to market well enough. Distribution helped to navigate like product, communication cadence, how to manage channel partners, how to incentivize them. Really was a bit of a crash course for us in reselling. So that was one, I'd say, was an accelerant for us.
Yeah, because it's not the most common route, because you're self-serve, right, or at least product-led growth, and then you're doing it via channel. Mm-hmm. maybe any learnings or any key takeaways which you can give to other SaaS founders now listening, where this is not the most typical thing to do, right? Or am I wrong here?
I'd say we were talking earlier about this, about building channels, and I think, and if you want to do it quickly, if you don't have 5 years to build a channel, and I do think it takes many years, like you need to maximize your exposure to different types of channel partners, and if as a founder you need to be the one leading that. That's an understated fact. Something that I didn't realize at the start is whenever you're trying to do something like completely new to the business, like you're usually the best placed person to do it because you take all your knowledge or your experience and you can very quickly adapt and iterate. If you go and hire someone who's 10 years experience, 20 years experience doing channel, drop them in, give them your product, like it's basically not, it's a recipe for disaster. They'll come back like 6 months later, they might have made progress, and then you have to start the cycle again. So I think, immerse yourself in it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good like overall feedback. Whenever you want to do something new, dive in yourself first, first as an entrepreneur, and then if it works or if it goes well, then you hand it over as a project.
I think, I'm not sure if that is great advice, but it's definitely what's worked for me.
Yeah, but I can already learn that your mindset, as you said, you're unemployable, you want to figure things out, and then probably when it's working, it loses your interest in a way, maybe, where you want to fix challenges, fix problems, and then dive deeper.
Yeah, you've got to stay on the problem long enough for it to become something that's repeatable, I think. And the benefit then is actually you have experience, you have perspective of that. So when you are hiring people into the role, you can actually tell them what does it look like day to day, what would success look like, what are the failures, and when they're coming back to you with new objections, new challenges, or they're trying to push it in a different direction, you can speak from a point of perspective. So like me immersing myself in channel allowed me to actually become more fluent in that conversation when you're hiring professionals.
Yeah. And when we look at the journey, what has been your biggest company challenge so far?
I think, I don't know how many people will say this on podcasts, but big challenges always revolve around people. I think, especially if you're like venture backed, you're going to be going through cycles where your company's going to be evolving and will look materially different year after year. Like definitely every 2 or 3 years, it's going to be a materially different company. You might have changed your go-to-market, you might have changed your product offering, you might be serving a different end customer, and all those are going to, not necessarily, but a lot of them will lead to changes in people. And so I think all the challenges, all the major ones I'd say, are around rebuilding teams, bringing the right people for the right time, right phase of the company as well.
Yeah, because that's what I experienced, at least personal, right phase of the company. I think like you have a lot of people who want to work in an early stage company, but when it gets too big, too many processes, HR becomes bigger, many more rules come in. That's where I go not so well either. Like I get the scrappy part.
Yeah.
And is that something like you see? It's more as in that, but also all the other things you mentioned. I guess like with the things changing, the team will change as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, as soon as you start, you change your go-to-market. Especially if it's as radical as going direct to customer. For example, you might have built up like a team of like BDs and SDRs, for example, and you don't need those necessarily in a channel model.
Yeah, makes sense. Are you struggling to find a cost-effective and scalable marketing channel? Check out Redditis. We help you to have other people recommend your SaaS, and you would only pay them when they deliver you paid clients, making it a very cost-effective and scalable marketing channel. Want to learn more? Go to getredditis.com. When we talk about personal challenges, like everybody hits rock bottom at one point. What was your moment, and I guess like how did you get out of that?
I can remember one moment that was 6 years ago. I was standing on the rooftop. Don't worry, I wasn't going to jump.
Yeah, I was already asking.
No, I was standing on the rooftop. It's when my co-founder and I decided we were going to part ways, and because I wanted to go and build a VC-backed, high-growth, high-risk company that may change the world, but may also crash and burn. She wanted to build an organic, very successful company as well, with the same aim, same purpose, in a different, slightly different direction. And I think that was that realization that, oh no, this is me. And back then I had a strong core team around me, and we brought in some really excellent people. After that helped us get through that and rebuild. But it's okay, it all rests on my shoulders now. It's quite a big solo founders out there I've got a lot of respect for. It's probably one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, but as you mentioned, at least you got help in, right? So whenever you made that decision, you got the help in to make sure you actually made the right calculated decision.
I think, you you support, right? You're never going to be 10 out of 10 in everything. Like people, go to market, product, operations, finance, right? You're gonna, these core areas of the business, you're going to need people who have expertise. You might be able to cover 2 or 3 very well, but you won't be able to cover all 5 all the time. Like really look at whether you do a responsibility matrix or you just do a simple, here's what I'm good at, here's what I'm bad at, here's what I like, here's what I hate. Just do an exercise like that, I think can help you to figure out, right, what kind of person, what kind of role would really complement this.
Yeah, I think that's a really good exercise. Like I haven't done it even personally myself, but I think by understanding yourself a lot, you can also figure out like who do you need around you.
Yeah, and ask for feedback because we're like the worst judges of our own character, I think. I think if you ask people for the weaknesses particularly, right? Because I think strengths you probably get a good idea of what's good. But ask people like your team, your friends, your family, your spouse.
Yeah.
Your partner will definitely tell you the truth.
In my case, she's going to be really honest, so that's nice. If we talk about failures, we love learning about failures, mistakes, things like that. What has been your biggest failure, mistake?
It's a hard question. I think probably this is a little, like over time, I'd say it's more of a, rather than a single point, if you don't invest in yourself, and when I've not invested in myself, and by that, like personal development, growth, my own skill set, have I got the skills that I needed to be a CEO of a company that is 5 people? Yes. Do I have it for 20 people? No, not at that point. So you need to grow, and then to 50 people. And I use people as this a good way of thinking about it, because the way the company communicates, the amount of information people know, like everyone in the team, as well as like varies drastically. So I think you do need to change a lot as how you communicate, all that kind of stuff. And I think not investing myself always led to like pain and friction down the line when stuff has happened. I'm like, oh yeah, you got 20 people, you can't know every single deal that's going on. You can't know every single product feature. You can't review every line of code, which I was doing. You can't do these things. You have to let go. There's probably another big personal learning or failures, like holding on to stuff for too long. I think it's good advice. I never listen to it. I don't think many people listening would either. But if you can, do let go.
Yeah, because I think it's really nice to hear, or it's nice to hear to somebody say let go, but to actually do it.
For me, the key's always been bringing in someone that can do it better than you. That's the easiest way to let go. Find someone that can do that thing better than you can. Like finance, for example, we've got an amazing CFO. I just don't even think about it. The more that you have competent, capable people around you that you trust, the easier it is to let go.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good learning and a really good way, because indeed, if you don't trust a person to do it better than yourself, you still want to check everything.
Yeah. That's not a good place to be. Yeah.
No, exactly. No. When we look at company-wise again, if you could go back in time, is there anything you want to do differently?
I think we're quite lucky because we've had quite a long time to develop and adapt and learn. I'd say probably the thing I'd love to do more of, and the stage that I enjoyed, is that small, nimble stage, like under 20 people, even under 10, where you're constantly learning and adapting. And I think stay there as long as you can would probably be my advice, because I think there's so much value and adaptability and learning, and your burn rate's modest. You can go a long time. There's often a kind of, there's a lot of like almost like peer pressure, right? As a founder to be like, oh, we should raise money. We've got to 10 or 20K. We've proven our initial, we should raise some seed or some angel, or it's money's really tight, or this is really stretching the resources, or we can't keep up with customer demand or something like that. And there's always a strong pull to grow revenue, grow headcount. And I think resisting that to really solve the problem, it benefits, it pays off, it's an investment really in the future of the company.
Yeah, and indeed, as you mentioned, it's a lot of peer pressure, because to any event you go,
oh my gosh, how much money you raised, like what's your ARR, when are you going to do this, what's your next milestone? There was actually a really interesting talk at SaaS Open talking about like this, is anyone here flat or not growing? And quite a lot of people said yeah, and a lot of people really want to get out. It's like a really uncomfortable state to be seeing a revenue year over year being the same. But I think you need to find like, where are we learning? Where are we growing? What capabilities, what skills are we developing? What have we invested in that is going to pay off 10x in the future? I think look at it a different way.
Yeah.
we simplify stuff too much, I think, headcount and revenue.
I do it even in the podcast. But I don't know if I personally like it that much, but it is nice to get a grasp of like, where's the company, what kind of problems are they having right now. But I do agree, like to any event you go, I even had one person at the Drinks at SaaS Open asked me, it was their first question they asked me. They even introduce yourself, what is your ARR? Is that really your first question you're going to ask me?
Yeah.
That's funny. When we look about Cybersmart, have you been using any kind of processes, strategies to get to the point where you are today?
We're obsessed, I'd say, is probably a good way of putting it. When it comes to operations, we've got an awesome director of operations as well. Before that, we had an epic COO that came in and helped us rebuild all of our information hierarchy, all our ways of working. And we did that really early on, like when we were smaller, and then it grew with the company, which was nice. Like we started with OKRs, we're probably, 5 years into OKRs, running those. We actually moved to a 4-month OKR this year, which is quite interesting. I'll let you know how that goes, so from quarterly. We've implemented 4DX, that's been really good for things that are not like mission critical, we've got to do something really uncomfortable. OKRs are great for like big, like moving into new territories or new markets or new products. 4DX has been really good for more of the business as usual. So we used to call it BAU and PMF, business as usual and product market fit. Really weird, but essentially everything that was like more drumbeat, like once you've got a go-to-market motion, repeating and building that, measuring it, weekly basis, etc. Even pulled some stuff out of the Entrepreneurial operating system, or the EOS. Yeah, might have heard that. Traction. It's a great book. Like pulling out like these meetings from there, meeting cadences. So we spend a lot of time and effort, like really optimizing for systems, processes, communication. And I think the reason we spend so much time is cadence matters a lot in a startup. Like the drumbeat that you're creating is how people show up to work. It's what people aim towards. It's like when deadlines get set, whether stuff gets done or reviewed, etc. I think the really big one where you're doing stuff like OKRs, and if you're doing it properly, so after a few cycles, like no one ever gets a right start, is that you really get towards clarity in what you're trying to achieve. Because we want to launch a new region. Okay, what does that mean exactly? How many customers is that? What type of customers is that? What products are they buying? Are we talking our current product in the new market? What's the ICP look like? So it forces you to get really clear. So cadence, clarity, and then the last one I'd say is it gives you confidence in being able to achieve those outcomes. Like pre-OKRs, we'd just say we want to get to 1 million ARR by the end of year one. We just started, so obviously we're never going to get there. We had no idea about how we're going to get there, how many customers that would be, like what was needed to get there, who was needed to get there. So we was just like a hope, really. And I feel like a lot of goal setting can just be hope. And I'm not saying don't have your big, hairy, audacious goal or whatever. Still aspire to your moonshots. But when it comes to executing, I think you need to be super clear on what you're trying to achieve. So I'd say those 3 areas are really important. Yeah, I think it comes to goal setting.
Yeah, and you took it from different systems. You mentioned EOS, OKRs, then the 4DX. So you combined it to what's working for you.
100%. I think that's the most important thing, and like never take a framework and just drop it in. And it might be helpful if it's your first one, like EOS, and just drop it in and try and run it as it's intended. But we've always adapted and said what bits of this work well, what don't work so well, and iterate. We set up a new meeting, and what I said was like, the only thing I know is this is not going to be the right format, but we are going to iterate on it. So you have to have that mindset of learning. If you're never going to get it right in 1 quarter or 1 cycle.
Yeah, makes sense. And have there been like in your journey any pivotal moments, or I guess like critical decisions you made which got you to the point you are right now?
I gave a talk on this 2 weeks ago in SaaS Open, right? The three bold moves. I'd probably say that the biggest pivotal moments have always been to do with people, changing the gods. We talked a bit about that as well. And then the go-to-market change, that's a big one. I'd say the other one really is like the choice of how you fund and grow the business. So whether that's bootstrapped or venture-backed or something in between, I think that was a big one for us. We decided that early on and stuck to that.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like summarizing it as making hard decisions, because letting go of people is not easy. Changing your go-to-market is probably not easy as well. Yeah. you have to make a hard decision to...
100%, yeah. I think a lot, like almost the data is easy. Yeah, we should obviously serve more of those types of customers, or obviously we need to adapt and grow, or like the data is often like easy bit and the hard bit is the execution piece, like bringing everyone with you on the journey. Like we were talking to one of the founders earlier about them merging companies, and so the decision to merge the companies, yeah, it makes sense, synergies, etc. We can combine efforts, combine product resources. Like 80-90% of M&A fails, right? Because you've got the whole year-long cultural integration, and nothing's really as rosy as it looks on the surface.
Yeah, and I think that's where you mentioned again with the OKRs, you have clarity, so at least people know where they're going towards, and you have your vision, your goals, so at least you can guide everybody into a certain direction.
100%. Yeah.
We talk about process, we talked about company processes, but how do you manage yourself, or how do you manage your time?
I'm really strict about time blocking, so like my calendar is basically how I run my life, personal and professional. So I literally just show up at the time that stuff's in my calendar. So in order to achieve that, you need an Epic assistant or a chief of staff. I have an Epic assistant who basically makes me incredibly organized. I'd say triples my productivity at least, and just by helping me to make sure I'm in the right place at the right time, doing stuff that matters, right? That's also one aspect, is you can often go into this whirlwind of, that's from 40X, they call it the whirlwind of like day-to-day activities. Spend all your time doing emails or something like that. And so I think getting an EA or someone that can really support you in that is super important. It'll give you superpowers as well. I think that the big challenge as a founder is like letting go of the stuff. We talked a bit about that, but like actually thinking and spending the time, what is the thing that only I can do? I'd say that's part of my journey I'm going through now, is we've got leaders, so I'm leading the leaders, and I'm also spending time thinking, what can I uniquely do? Really, what could only I do? And that's the stuff I'll try and do more of.
Yeah, and that's, for example, also, I guess you have in your calendar, figure out, or not figure, it's not going to call like this, how can you take the company forward? So really deep learning maybe, and...
100%, yeah, like literally I put a whole day called Deep Zone.
Okay.
Block it out.
Yeah, and then from there, like how do you, I'm curious now, how do you start? Like you just Deep Zone, and then from there you have notes where you want to dive into certain things, or...
So this is, I don't know how common this is, but for me, I always get ideas or thoughts when I'm like doing random stuff, that like walking somewhere, right? I'll go into the gym or something, I'll be like sitting, it's like running on the treadmill, and I'll stop the treadmill, write down something, because I just come up with an idea. But then when I get to that time block, I've got like a bank of stuff to work through. I think it's so easy to be like, open Slack, respond to messages, check your email, and then all of a sudden your day's gone and you're like, I didn't actually achieve what I wanted to do today. So I think have that bank. I think the other concept I think has been really helpful for me is that of flow. So once you're in flow, so like I think it's Csikszentmihalyi invented this concept around like people getting into the zone basically in an area. I think if you're feeling creative, do creative stuff. If you're not feeling creative, or you're not in the mood to think about the strategy of the company for the next 3 years, then don't do it. So I think try and find that time when you're feeling the pull, right? Yeah. And that's when you're going to come up with the best ideas. So although you've got to be really strict about your time blocking, I think also you've got to be mindful of like when you're in the mood to do stuff.
Yeah, indeed, because it doesn't have to be a must. You want to do it and you want to have the ideas. But I like the bank idea where you have a lot of ideas, I guess you get sometimes during the days, right? Like after a call or during a call, and then you probably want to take it like right away to somebody, or you want to do something with it. But by writing it down and actually taking it in the designated time, then you can think about it more, and maybe you think, hey, it's not actually a priority anymore because I have all these other things I want to investigate first.
Yeah, it's a good kind of related to that is just having the time and space to think through stuff that is really important. So even though you've blocked out your calendar, make sure you've got some free space in there as well. I often, if it's during the workday, I'll just like ping my CFO or using my CFO because he's been my sounding board for the last 6 months. Essentially, I'm thinking about this, and it's often a crazy idea and doesn't work. But just the process of getting it out, you refine it, you get a bit of feedback on it, and then you say, I'll take that away. And then a week later, I'm like, okay, I've thought about it a bit more. This is what I'm thinking now.
Nice. Yeah, and I guess I like it as you mentioned that you're sparring with somebody
Yeah.
all the time. Is also, even though you mentioned like now or being a founder, like you don't have to do everything by yourself.
Oh.
Find those sparring partners who know things better than you, like your CFO you mentioned on the financial part. Make sure you use them.
Yeah, I think it's too easy to fall into that trap of being like absorbing and taking everything in, and it becomes a bit of a labyrinth sometimes because you've got like all this information and knowledge and ideas, and it can feel a bit circular. I think getting it out, speaking to people, other founders, I think is a really useful source because people have perspective on your ideas, and I think just speaking about them, it's like a ball of clay or something. You need to mold it until it looks good, right?
Yeah. If only you can go to the Moroccan desert with 40 founders, just ride a camel and talk about SaaS.
Yeah. No, this is important though. This is refreshing, recharging, come up with a next good idea or improving your existing ideas. I think the last couple of years, a lot of it's been about like really figuring out what works and really like fine tuning as well. So it's good sessions for that.
Yeah, love it. We're gonna dive to the end, the 3 final questions. So if you can give a SaaS founder advice who is just starting out on their journey going from 1 to 10K monthly recurring revenue, what kind of advice would you give somebody here?
Well, I give some generic advice and then like our advice or our story as well. So for me, generic stuff I'd say is all that phase is all about failure or unplanned learning, however you want to look at it. But it's trying lots and lots of different stuff, and that can be with the product, it can be with the go-to-market, it can be with the team. It's like a really creative space, I'd say. It's where you figure out what works, what doesn't work, and I think you have to be super willing to adapt and pivot what you thought was true. So you're almost at that point, your brain is like 100% open and receptive, and as you grow past that, you obviously need to become a little more narrow in your focus. So trying lots of stuff, iterating a lot, because you'll never get it right first time, and I think often we'll fail if we try something 5-10 times. Like we called 200 partners. Once we realized the potential in channel, we called 200 partners to book 40 demos. So like a lot of people would have made 5 or 10, 20 calls and been like, this isn't right for us. But by iterating, then we're able to get the script better, figure out what a good partner could look like, etc. And so the last bit I'd say in that stage is just perseverance, because like it's nice to have that 10K goal in mind. I think it's almost better, like coming back to what we were saying earlier about these numbers, it's almost better saying, what do I need to learn or prove to move to the next stage? And 10K is probably a nice, simple way of doing it. But actually, it's a bit more like, I want to have 10 customers that tell me this product is, they couldn't live without this product, right? Like the Sean Ellis product market fit test. Something like that, I think that's a better milestone almost than a revenue one.
Yeah. No, I agree, because you need to have happy clients who can't live without your product anymore, who can help you to the next phase.
Exactly, yeah. Money will always flow, I think, if you can create customer value.
Yeah. If we go beyond the 10K monthly recurring revenue, and this is a huge step, I know, but we're going to go to 10 million ARR. What kind of advice would you give SaaS founders here?
I'd say probably like the 2 big things, actually 3 things. So the first one would be information hierarchy. It's not a technical term. Basically, how do you get information from the team and how take decisions? How do you cascade information down, top to bottom, but also how the teams work between each other? Product and engineering, easy one. Product engineering or technology team and your go-to-market team, how do those 2 areas work together? So I think spend a lot of time iterating and improving how information flows. So it's not just about like presentations or one-way communication, it's all about like tools and mechanisms to create that. I think the second big bit, and it's related kind of what I'm talking about there, is the culture. I think overinvest in culture, because it's something that is so important for attracting people, it's so important for retaining people, it's so important for change management, and change management is happening throughout that whole cycle, right? You're talking about 10K to 10 million. There's a lot of change management. So investing in culture, in other words, like, why are we here? What do we want to achieve? What does good look like for us? What the shared set of values and beliefs we have as a company, and not putting that as a second priority. So that's always been something really important for me from day one as well. And the third one is more of a personal one, I think, and it actually ties up nicely to what we were saying before. As a founder, you need to constantly look at what you're doing and do less. I think something I've constantly struggle with as well. But like focusing on yourself, like you're not going to get 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 to 10 if you're always in the weeds. Like you won't be able to see it.
Yeah, and with do less, you mean be less in the day-to-day, but focus more on the things you mentioned, like the vision. How do you get to the next milestone?
Yeah, and I was lucky because I had people around me telling me to get out of our day-to-day. You shouldn't be writing code, you shouldn't be selling, you shouldn't be doing this. Go and do your job. Think about what's coming next. What are we doing next quarter? That's what we need to know. What's the plan for the year? What happens if we don't get? What's the next move we're going to be making? So like the team need that from you far more than they need you to come in and make a difference. You will add marginal gains. In fact, you'll probably slow people down at that stage.
Exactly, and to come back to what you said before, if you have the right people who are more knowledgeable on the thing you want them to do, then there's no reason for you to go in anymore.
Yeah.
If we dive into the last question, any final thoughts, learnings you want to give away to the other SaaS founders?
So I was on a panel last week and someone was talking about their challenges, and the advice I give them is stick with it. I think it is really hard starting a company. Look at the failure rates and the successes, etc. You're in the minority if you can get through all of that challenge, and I think it's often easy to let the failures and the things that don't get right overwhelm you. The most successful people have been through hundreds of knockdowns and setbacks. I think stick with it's probably my number one tip.
Yeah, and stay quivered. It's an English term, right? So it means stay
perseverance,
exactly,
adaptability, like pushing yourself into uncomfortable places, taking difficult decisions in order to progress forward. So yeah, have grit. It's probably the American way of saying it.
Nice. Cool. This was the end. What we'll do is we'll link towards Cybersmart. We will link towards your LinkedIn profile, because is that going to be the best way to contact you if people want to reach out? Cool. And we're going to link towards the 3 processes you mentioned: EOS, OKRs, and then
40X.
The 40X. Thank you. And if you're listening on Spotify, make sure to hit follow and leave us a review there so we can help other SaaS founders on their journey. And I think we're now almost going into the desert here. Thank you for coming on, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this show of the Grow Your B2B SaaS podcast. You made it till the end, so I think we can assume you liked this content. If you did, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you like this content, feel free to reach out if you want to sponsor the show. If you have a specific guest in mind, if you have a specific topic you want us to cover, reach out to me on LinkedIn. More than happy to take a look at it. If you want to know more about Reditus, feel free to reach out as well. But for now, have a great day and good luck growing your B2B SaaS.